going to get started right away with a subject we've talked about before, which is the rapidly approaching state crackdown on free speech. And this is something that if we don't tackle this properly, then UK column itself is under grave threat, because there is no doubt the agenda is for the British state to control all press and media. Over to you, Ben.
Thank you, Brian. Hey, everyone. And we're going to pick up on a theme that we were exploring last week, and actually not just last week, we talk about this all the time, and it is the audacious takeover of the national, regional and local news through philanthropic funding, government intervention, and an overbearing and increasingly censorious media regulator. Last week, we were looking at this report from Demos, Epistemic Security 2029, Fortifying the UK's Information Supply Chain to Tackle the Democratic Emergency. Too long, didn't read it. Basically, they want more powers to censor you. The Online Safety Act is not enough, and they want more powers, and we're going to explore that with specific reference to something that they call news deserts, interestingly, which is a term that emerged in this report. We're going to look at where that's come from. So if we go back to that and jump to page 30, which is about boosting our domestic information supply chain, specifically section 4B. I know you all went and downloaded this, so if you've got it in front of you, you can go and read it. So 4B provides targeted funding to stimulate a new era of vibrant local news in what they call news deserts. That's what this is about. And the recommendation is for central government to provide a funding package blended with other sources of funding, e.g. from philanthropists and big tech funds, to help stimulate a new era of vibrant local news, starting at £50 million a year and focusing on what they describe as news deserts, right? So we've got these news deserts all around the UK, and in order to fill them, to bring them back to life, philanthropists, the government and big tech have got to come together and inject a load of money into this. I wonder if any of that will be coming in our direction. I'm not sure. It comes from this organisation. This is based on some work done by Public Interest News Foundation, who work very closely with Demos. They're referenced 3 times in the report, and we're going to look at them and what they're all about. So this is their website. They've been around for 5 years. And obviously, they're a non-profit, non-partisan, purely altruistic organisation focused on the public interest. And what does public interest news mean? I think it's important for us to define this, given it's what we're talking about here. Going to read this whole thing out, actually. Maybe we'll dwell on each of these points. So public interest news is news and other information which is produced and disseminated to the public according to high standards of ethical conduct and best practice in journalism, and which provides one or more of the following benefits to the public. First one, informs members of the public about matters of relevance to their role and responsibilities as citizens. Yeah? So this is what you've got to do, citizen. Yeah. Second point, enables members of local communities to become aware of and understand matters of common concern to them as members of their community, and which promotes their involvement and cooperation in such matters and community cohesion accordingly. Yeah, so you've got to know what you've got to do, and you've got to be cooperative with it.
And you've got to do it, otherwise you're going to be in trouble. So this is direct control of communities and individuals by the government.
Absolutely. Right. Third point, enables members of the public to participate in an informed manner in relevant democratic processes. So I'm thinking maybe citizens' assemblies are lurking behind this, and as a result, supports the legitimacy of the democratic process as a whole. That's an important one there. Fourth point, benefits the public by promoting charitable educational outcomes, such as improving public understanding of health and medical matters, like pandemics, I guess.
So this is you're going to be told what you need to believe. And if you don't believe the official narrative, you're going to be in trouble.
Absolutely. or the conservation of the environment. So that's the climate agenda. Pandemics and climate in that fourth point. Final point, specifically excludes material which is simply entertaining in nature, like UK column, we just entertainment, or politically motivated, biased or inaccurate, so no disinformation, or which fails to observe a person's right to privacy, right? So those things aren't public interest news. And apparently, according to Public Interest News Foundation, there are deserts all around the country of public interest news. And they've built this quite impressive interactive map you can go and look at, and they've collated across the whole country where they see deserts, spaces where there is no reliable information for communities to access. And one of those, actually, interesting, I'm going to look at Plymouth. I thought we should look at PL1, see what's going on PL1. And bear in mind, they've looked at all media. Yeah, this is an extraordinarily in-depth study, right? So we've got 2-3 media organisations in Plymouth, Plymouth Chronicle, Plymouth Herald, funded by UK government. Yeah, look at the bottom left. This is funded by the UK government. But what's happening in Plympton? There's nothing happening in Plympton.
It's quite amazing.
But we're seeing in Plympton now, Brian. Why are we not on the map?
Because we're not giving the right news.
No, it's because we're simply entertainment purposes, aren't we? We're not serious, right? So apparently, no UK column. There's no UK column on your interactive map public interest news. The government clearly didn't pay you enough money. So anyway, what else are they up to other than looking at news deserts? Well, importantly, how to fill them. And they were commissioned by this other organisation, the Local News Commission, which is actually just the same people. Basically, they always do this. They set up a new independent thing, but it's all the same people in the background. But this Local News Commission popped up towards the end of last year, drawing on deep expertise from UK civil society, politics, trade unions and business to shape media policy. They commissioned this report, and within it, they look at the current state of media. Right. So this is the media ecosystem they've mapped out. Go download the report, by the way. We will always provide links to these things. You should go and read them yourself. And this is what they call democracy in danger. Right. And you can see the key, the different coloured arrows represent unhealthy for red, weak for yellow, or healthy for green. And if they're thicker, that means higher engagement. So you can see that the BBC has got a healthy but low engagement relationship with fragile communities at the top. Communities are fragile at the moment because the BBC is talking to them. You've got a fragile local news in the centre there, which the BBC is also talking to as well. So there's just a one-way relationship between the BBC, because the local news obviously look at what the BBC is saying and then they report that. And then central government's got a bit of a role to play. Local councils have got a weak and one-way relationship with local news, but the big red flag is the top left there. Yes, big tech, the big bad dangerous internet, and Elon Musk and Andrew Tate and where dragons are, out online, and that's causing fragile communities, and ultimately it's causing democracy to wither. If you see there in the top right hand corner, democracy is withering. Right, and we've got to fix this. How are we going to fix it? We're going to move to this model. This is 2035. This is democracy regenerated, where the BBC has a much stronger and more collaborative relationship with local news media through the local democracy reporting scheme, which is already in place. They want to bump that up. Central government has a more engaged role with local news media. Something called the Civic Centre. I don't know if you clocked that, but they've actually changed from a town hall to a civic centre. So the local council is going to be a new form of local council in this model by 2025. And the local council is going to have a much more direct relationship with these empowered communities at the top. So will the community newsroom. There's a new entrant, philanthropy. Yeah. Centre left. There's going to be a lot of money and a lot of influence coming into this ecosystem from philanthropy, rich people, right? This is money and power colluding with each other in order to take control of the media ecosystem, in order to, as they see it, empower communities so that democracy might flourish, right? What could possibly go wrong? And the big tech ecosystem has been tamed, yeah? We can see that it's now been regulated and restrained and is much more trustworthy, ultimately,
My comment on this, Ben, is, of course, the moment you let local councils loose with news, All that's simply going to come out is more of the mainstream political propaganda, because, of course, local councils are now highly politicised. They only follow the lead from the controlling party. So if it's a Labour council, it's going to be Labour propaganda. And if it's a Conservative council, it's going to be Conservative propaganda. So this is immensely dangerous. I can imagine that a Second World War Germany would have been desperate to be able to buy and facilitate this type of system in order to get propaganda to the individual 24 hours a day. This is really serious stuff, and people need to understand, if this architecture comes into place, free speech in this country absolutely gone.
Completely. And guess who funded this report? So who funds Public Interest News Foundation? Just be absolutely on the button about this. So Ben Goldsmith, Jimmy Goldsmith's son. So he's in the philanthropy bucket. DCMS, so like the Department for Culture, Media and Sport, have funded this report, this organisation. The European Media and Information Fund, Joseph Rowntree Charitable Trust, Luminate, which is Daniel Sachs Foundation, they've got money in there, Open Societies, Paul Hamlin, all the usual suspects basically, the NHS, because obviously we need to pay attention to public health information. That was in the definition of public interest media, wasn't it? Right. So that's who's pushing this. Yeah. So government and philanthropy want more involvement in media. So they funded a report to make that exact recommendation. It's a bit circular, isn't it? Who's behind Public Interest News Foundation? Some of the individuals. So we got Julius Weinberg. He's the chair, former chair of Ofsted, interestingly. For a number of years. Polly Curtis from Demos. She's the deputy chair of this organisation. So Demos uses Public Interest News Foundation as an external source of recommendations to put into its report, but actually the person who runs Demos is on the board of the Public Interest News Foundation. It's all a bit incestuous, isn't it? Who else? Richard Scorer. This is a fascinating one, right? So he's a solicitor and he ran the independent inquiries, public inquiries into child sexual abuse, the Manchester Arena bombing, the COVID-19 inquiry, the Thirlwall inquiry, which is Lucy Letby, and the inquiry into the death of Dawn Sturgis, which is the Novichok issue. So that man there, Scorer, is basically one of the primary representatives of establishment narrative around some of the most controversial issues that have happened in the past 20 years. And he's on the trustee board of this organisation wanting to control local news media. Isn't that a bit odd?
Not if your agenda is total control, state control of all media and press.
Yeah,
then.
Quite. Okay, so these are the trustees. So these are non-execs, essentially. Let's have a look at a few of the exec team. Again, go and look at the website yourself. First one, Jonathan Hayward. He is the executive director, former editor of the Fabian Review. Yeah, that's his big claim to fame. So Fabian's right in the mix. He's also a leadership fellow at St George's House in Windsor, so nestled up right next to the royal family. Jaldeep Katwala, who's the network manager, former BBC, Channel 4, UN, you get the picture. And then the guy on the end there is a fascinating one, Samir Padania. So he's involved with Open Society Foundations, the Wellcome Trust, with Nesta, and also the International Fund for Public Interest Media that I spoke about a month ago, I think it was, where Mark Thompson is on the board, right? So this is a local news, but he's linked right up into the stratosphere in the global ecosystem around this. And he's also a trustee of something called the Indigo Trust. And if you remember this bloke, William Perrin OBE, last week, the guy that helped found found Ofcom, worked for Blair, has got a thing called the Indigo Trust that he's actually a founder of. That guy, Padania, is a trustee of that trust. So this is all just interconnected. It's just all the same. It's just one thing, yeah? And it gets presented as many things. Extraordinarily corrupt, yeah, and dishonest. Yeah, it's they're lying to us, frankly, about their intentions and their methods here.
How the system works, but it's a revolving door.
Yeah.
And you've got one more here, I think, Ben.
Yeah, I do indeed. Just very quickly, just to look at how this is actually coming to life in practice. So this is a case study from the Public Interest News Foundation website about ipswich.co.uk, and I'll just pull out two quotes from the article. Ipswich doesn't need more journalism, it needs change. And also, 22 organisations fund our journalism through an annual fee. We call this a common purpose levy. I think says quite a bit.
That's just got to be a coincidence.